Hello friends, it's Cindy Brumbaugh from CindyLeeBDesigns.com, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Look what I have. The new annual catalog is in my hands, May 2021 to April 2022. We can show in the outside of the cover, but not the inside of the cover, but just a little sneak peek of how beautiful the things are going to be on the inside. So I am so excited. I have so much to tell you. I almost can't contain myself. I'm making this video the day I got my overnight order, but I'm going to be posting it on Wednesday as I normally do. But I wanted to let you guys, I'm just so excited about it. So I'm going to be showing you the new in colors. As you can see here, I'm going to make a card ensemble using the new in colors. So we're just going to go over those. The new in colors are Pale Papaya, and that Pale Papaya is, let's take a look at some of the colors we have in that range right now. So this is the Pale Papaya, and this here is Daffodil, this is Mango, and this is So Saffron. So you can see it's just added another shade and hue of in that palette range. So that is Papaya. And then we also have Polished Pink. And just when you thought we didn't need another pink, you will be amazed at the pinks. So here we are with this card in this ensemble, and this is the Polished Pink. Now this is Melon Mambo, this is Blushing Bride, this is Flirty Flamingo, and this is our Magenta Madness. So I got a little thing there. So as you can see, it just adds a whole new dimension to our pinks. I really like this Polished Pink here. It's a little more subdued than the magenta, but it's got more pink in it than the Flirty, but the Flirty is a nice lighter pink. So as you can see here, I'm using some of the in colors here. The next one is Fresh Freesia. Fresh Freesia is our purpley one. And just to show you, we're actually going to be making a card that I'm going to demonstrate. So this is the Fresh Freesia. Now this is the Purple Posy that's leaving, and this is our Highland Heather. So you can see Purple Posy is going to be gone, but if you recall the color of it, you've got like a nice more, the Freesia is kind of that, when you see it against the Highland Heather that's our lighter purple, it's more of a mauvish color, like a little pink into it, but when it's just by itself, it just looks like a beautiful light purple. So we're going to put that one aside. This is the card we're going to be making a sample out of. And then we have the Soft Succulent. It's kind of a sagey green, and you can see that on the front of this card here. It's got like a sagey color to it. So it's actually going to be beautiful to go with all our greens, our Old Olive and our Shaded Spruce and our Garden Green. It's really pretty, and it really does remind me of Succulent. And then we have Evening Evergreen, and this is a nice deep dark green, almost like a hunter green, and I used on this card here just to show you the color of that Evening Evergreen, and it's also going to go nice into our palette of greens, especially at Christmas time. I can really see this with Cherry Cobbler and our reds. Okay, so as I was showing you those, you know we have coordinating ribbons as well. Now these are called the Open Weave ribbons. To me, it almost reminds me of an organdy. So like an organdy on the inside here, but beautiful. Look at the different shades of those ribbons there, and all of the 5 new in colors. Okay, so I'm using a new stamp bundle that's in the annual catalog that's coming out May 4th, and it's called the Color and Contour stamp set. As you can see, some beautiful blooms in here, some great fonts used in the sentiments here, and it also has dies to cut out the flowers in the images here, but it has a great layering rectangle with scallops. Now these are called the Scalloped Contours dies, and we're going to be using them on our little card ensemble we're making. So what I did for this ensemble is I decided to use the colors of the flowers and then just use the greens as the accents on my leaves. So as you can see, I made one with the Oh my gosh, I almost forgot the pale papaya, the pale papaya. So I used, oh, and you know what is really exciting about this new in color is that we have blends for every single in color. So right here are the ones I'm going to be using. Some of these I'm using light and some of them I'm using dark, but each one of those new in colors, Evening Evergreen, Polished Pink, Pale Papaya, Fresh Freesia, and the light, I'm using the light soft succulent. So all of those new in colors have blends that go with them. And of course the Stampin' Right markers as well to fix up little things and to use with our blends. Okay, so here is the card ensemble I made, and I used these dies here. And I was gonna put this bigger die here. I have a sample of it. It's like about this big, and this is just something I messed up here. See, guys, I messed things up. So this die was going to go on the outside, but it just was one too many layers on. But I really wanted to show you how beautiful it was. So what I did is I put it on the inside of the card, and it was just a beautiful way to show you that beautiful lattice scallop there. So let's get started here, and we are going to make a card with the Fresh Freesia. So this one, of course, I used the Polished Pink and the darker Evening Evergreen, and then the Soft Succulent Green with the Pale Papaya. Now this one is a beautiful color too, this Fresh Freesia, and we are going to just pull this piece out here. It's going to go on the inside, and then I'm just going to show you how I went about doing this. I have some big plans for this great stamp set, Color and Contour, with these Scalloped Contours dies. So I got myself all set up with my Stamparatus. So I'm gonna bring that Stamparatus out here. The Stamparatus makes for really quick work when you're making multiples. And so I'm gonna show you how I ended up making a bunch of these cards. So I'm just gonna sneak out a little cheating here. Okay, so what you're going to do first, I'm going to move this stuff around here, is I have my Stamparatus ready to go, and I just put my bloom on the acrylic plate, on the inside of the acrylic plate, so it's going to be closing down. So I took a piece of Whisper White here, and I'm going to, I have my magnet back here stored on the back of the Stamparatus, and I'm going to just, I'm going to make sure, yeah, there we go. I'm going to put it in place, and then what I'm going to do is use my basic black. Where is my, oh, it's right underneath the card there. And I am going to put my stamp set kind of underneath here. Gives me, so I'm not pressing down on the acrylic plate. So we're going to ink up. And one of the reasons I love, not just for the positioning of what technique I'm going to show you, is I really like to use my Stamparatus when I'm doing black outlines, because no matter how well you stamp it, sometimes you just want a nice, deep, dark image, okay? As you can see here, this is not as dark as I want it to be. But when I do a second run at it, it gets darker, just perfect. I'm not sure exactly. So we're gonna put that back down there. Okay, now what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to use the dies that go with that stamp set. And I'm going to take, don't you just love this big scallop here? So I'm gonna take this die here that fits, whoop, we're gonna move my magnet out of the way. And this die, I'm going to position it onto this one, because this one has the really fine line there. Make sure that I've got all of the black inside the die. And then I'm just gonna secure it with some temporary tape. Now, if you're putting it on the outside of your image, you could use Scotch tape because you won't care if it, but this one, if it happens to touch a little bit of the inside, this is more of that removable tape. So what I'm going to do is take this over to my Big Shot, and then I'm going to die cut it. And then I'm going to come back with this piece and this piece. Now with this piece and this piece, as you can see, this is my template now because I made a perfect die cut, and now I can put that back in there. I can cut a bunch of blanks with this, with the die that I used, put those blanks back in there, and now I can just ink up that bloom with a beautiful stem and then stamp it right. Actually, you know what? Okay, it did work, but I'm going to move this out of the way. Sometimes my magnet gets in the way. So just put on some more ink there, and as you can see, it's stamping right on that die cut that I had already die cut. Make sure it's into the corner, but you don't actually have to use the corner, but I prefer to use the corner. But the Stamparatus can be used anywhere on this the surface, the plane there. Okay, so now I have this beautiful image. Now what do I have to do? I just die cut. I would just go with this die and run it through as many times as I want. And believe me, die is going to be ran a lot. Then I just keep putting the blanks in and stamping. And then I have a whole pile of these. I actually did that with my Grace's Garden. And see how many pieces I have? Because once I did it, I just kept them. So anytime I want to put together cards with that, I have all of the work done. Isn't that awesome? Okay, so we're going to set this aside, but making sure I don't misplace it there. Okay, so now I have this bloom here. And I'm going to leave that template in here. As long as you don't remove this stamp, you can use this template. But if you remove this stamp, you have to make a new template because it matches the placement of this one, okay? So I'm going to set this aside for just a second here. Where to find a place to set it aside? Okay, so somehow that yellow got in here. Okay, so this is going to be the inside of the card. On the outside of the card, like I said, I used the Succulent, Simply Succulent. And then I die cut. Look at all these. This is the inside. This is the Simply Succulent. This is the white. Plus you have 2 more layers to go down if you would like to. So what I'm going to do is decorate this front of this card here. Okay. So here we go. We're just going to use, well, actually, let's use this one. No, let's show this one so you can see both of those colors there. So now what I'm going to do is in this stamp set, here we go. In this stamp set is this nice grunge, I call it there. And so we're going to stamp some grunge on here. Okay, so we have got the grunge here. And on this card, I used the Evening Evergreen, but on this one, since I'm using Simply Succulent, I'm going to use that ink. So I'm just going to open up. Remember these new ink pads, you just open on a hinge. So they're not in the new one, and then you make them flat, and then you slide them over to stamp them, get the ink on your stamp. Okay, now, oh, you know what? Before I do that one, I have to show you a little trick I did. Okay, so this stamp in this set says, "Here for you now." It fit across here. It fit the distance here, but I wanted room for my stem here. So what I did is I took my stamp, yes I did, and I cut off the now. Now I love the image. It says "Here for you now" and "In better days ahead." So it's kind of, it flows together. Here for you now and in better days ahead. So I knew that I could cut this now off because it had a nice space in between the words. So what I did when I did that is I made one clean cut, and then you know that if I want to use that, all it does is pop right back on there. Now, if you try trimming it, then it's not going to go exactly where you want it to be. So that made it so that it would fit on here. And like I said, they're your stamps. You can do what you want with them, but just make sure you make a clean cut. So I'm going to ink this up with the Simply Succulent, and I'm going to put the "Here for you" over to the right of the corner there. here for you. Now I know I'm going to have some space for my stem. And then I'm going to ink up my little grunge there. And then I just put some grunge up in that top corner on the left. And did I call it? That's down to the right corner. I think, you know, whenever I do that all the time, when I'm driving with my daughter and she goes, turn left, turn right. And then I put on something else and I'm like, and she's like, Mom, you didn't turn right. I told you right. Like, okay. So now you can see I can fit my bloom in there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and color my bloom. I'm going to get my markers here, and we're using the Fresh Freesia, and we're using the Simply Succulent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get out my craft mat, because I don't want to have any bleed through on here, just for the sake of it. And I'm just going to color in some of my, no, not some of, all of my leaves. And I'm using the light Simply Succulent. But there is a nice progression from the light to the dark, the nice color. And I just brought it down, even where there's not a leaf here. I just felt like I needed some green there. So Simply Succulent. Oh, I was so happy that we had all the blends were represented in this collection here of the new in colors that'll be around for 2 years. And then we're going to use the, I do believe I used the dark. So we'll just color in this. And sometimes these dry a little bit different of a color, a little bit lighter, just like ink sometimes dries lighter. We're just gonna get that Fresh Freesia, which is really pretty. Like I said, I guess it's maybe like a mauve-ish color. I remember my husband was bringing home a new car one time, and I was at my mother-in-law's house with my kids, and my oldest son is colorblind, and then I realized probably Jim was, because he said we asked him what color the car was. It was like an SUV, and he said, oh, it's mauve. So he's driving down the road, and he gets there, and we're like, just so you know, Jim, that is not mauve. I'm not kidding you. Now that I look at this, the color of that SUV that he got was actually Simply Succulent. And that was the car that he drove forever. Then my oldest son did. My middle son took it to college. Then my daughter ended up with it. It was an MDX, that's what it was. And literally the color of the MDX was like this color of Simply Succulent, but he called it mauve. I'm like, okay, maybe that's where Zach gets his color blindness from, my oldest son. Okay, so now we're just going to be putting these flowers on the front. But before we did that, I wanted to use some of the ribbon that we have. And so I'm going to get my Stampin' Seal here. And it's going to be on this side here. And I'm just going to I'm going to go ahead and just put the adhesive on now, so I have it on there. A little bit right there. Now the question is, where'd that ribbon go? Here it is. Just want to put a little touch of that Freesia, Fresh Freesia, on the side here. So I'm just going to put it right on, maybe a little bit up. You always want to try to make things just look like so artistic, and then the more you try, the harder it gets. So then we're just going to stick that right onto the Fresh Freesia. Oh, the Fresh Freesia against the Simply Succulent. And you've got that beautiful purple against that pretty green. And then we're just going to simply put it onto the front of the card. Now, I did raise this up with dimensionals, which are over here, just a couple steps away. So I put some dimensionals on the back of the succulent so that it would pop up off the Freesia cardstock. As demonstrators, we got to have a look at the new ink colors online, and you know, until you get them in your hands, you don't realize how they really are different than all the colors that we have. And so I was really glad, because it really adds another depth to many of the colors that we already had. And sometimes you'll be using, you know, a certain green and you think, oh, I wish it had more blue in it, or I wish it had more of a lighter green in it. So it's just really neat how these colors are a really added bonus. Even though they look like, a few of them remind me of some really old Stampin' Up colors, which I did play around with, but they literally are totally different. So there we go. We have that fresh Freesia and the Simply Succulent, and then we're just gonna pop up our flowers there. So where did I just put the big dimensionals? How could I just have them in my hand? And you guys are probably saying they're right there. Okay. Where did I put them? Seriously, where did I put those? Oh, well, I guess I'll just use some small ones. And then I'm going to put a small one there. Now, when I do that, excuse me, I'm going to cut half of one of my little dimensionals, one of them in half, and then that's going to go really easily using my take your pick tool. I can pop that on that leaf down there, and even the stem has just enough space there for me to put a half a dimensional in there. I still don't know what happened to my big dimensionals. Okay, so let's just get our little protective pieces off of the back here. Said I probably would have used my bigger dimensionals on this, but okay, so now we're gonna pop that. Oh, I just love that beautiful Freesia color with the Simply Succulent. Okay, so that's the outside of the card. Now to do the inside, we're gonna bring back the largest of the scallops in these layering scallop here. And that's gonna go on the inside, but we are going to do a little fun stamping here. As you see on here, I put a flower that was in here that also you can stamp, which with this flower, you can also stamp in these colors, but this flower, I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do that. And of course, we're going to use our Stamparatus again. So when we're using the Stamparatus, you can use so many different sides of it, of the acrylic plate. And so what I'm gonna do is show you how. I just lift this up right at a straight 90-degree angle. I didn't want to jam my, okay, so you just figure out what's the best way for you to reach your goal of stamping. And so what I'm going to do is pop in this scallop here. And if I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't going to move on me, I could just put a tiny bit of a temporary adhesive on there, and then it's just keep it in place for me. So we just stick that up in the corner there, and then I'm going to ink up this flower here. What I did was first found out where I wanted the flower. I laid the flower on here, then closed the acrylic plate on there so it would pick up the stamp. And then we just grab our black ink, and I'm going to, once again, you can't see what I'm doing, but I inked up that plate, and I just realized I got some ink on my plate. Not that it's gonna matter. And then I'm gonna stamp down the flower. Hold it there for a moment, and see it, sometimes it'll pull back up, but as long as you put it back into the corner, you're safe. So what I'm gonna do is ink up that flower one more time just to get a nice black image. And like I said, Stamparatus just for that actual point is good enough for me if that was the only thing I could do with the Stamparatus. I love getting that deep dark image. So now we've got that beautiful image there. Now what I did is I took this one that creates the color inside the black lined image, and I also put it down onto the actual paper. So I stuck it onto the paper, then I closed the acrylic plate down onto the image. And when you put it down onto the image, you're actually then, I have to get the fresh Freesia here, you're actually going to have it perfectly in place. And you can see now, and I'm just going to show you how, I'll just turn it this way so you can see it here. I guess I should have did that in the beginning. You don't necessarily have to wipe off your ink because it shouldn't affect it, but I do it just to be safe. So there you go. I just put the fresh Freesia on there. Look how pretty that is. A nice artistic watercolor. So now I can put my Stamparatus up so it doesn't get jostled about. Close my ink pad. An open ink pad is just an accident waiting to happen. So the next thing I'm going to do is, this one I used the Evening Evergreen, but as I said on this card, the Freesia card, we're using the Simply Succulent. So what I did is I used my Simply Succulent ink pad, and when they first open up, you'll have a few of little pieces of plastic that sometimes come. Just pick them up very gently with a pointy object, then make sure you clean it off. And then I just took that image, sentiment, and in Better Days Ahead, and I stuck it up there at the top. So I'm gonna ink it up here in the Simply Succulent. I think I just got it on that white. And I'm just going to center it right there. And remember, I cut off the now. And before I cut off the now, we'll just get a little bit of ink. It's a tiny stamp, so tiny taps. And then I'm just going to put that now right up above and in. Look at that. It looks like it belonged there. So here for you now and in Better Days. So that was the way that I fixed it to my liking. And just for this card, you know, I may have a larger area to put it next time across here. Like maybe I would have turned the card this way and it would have fit across here, but that was a way that I got around my little bit of a limitation there. So what I'm going to do is put some adhesive on the back of this large scalloped. This is going to be used. That and the Stitched with Whimsy dies that add a great accent to the inside of your cards instead of just the white or the vanilla that you put on the inside. So this is going to be probably used a ton of times here in the days to come. So there we go. Here for you now and in Better Days Ahead. So we've got a pretty Freesia, and then I use the Evening Evergreen with the darker pink here, the polished pink, and then the pale Papaya. So as you can see here, we're using all of the new in colors, and they also have the ribbons with them. And we had blends, so we colored the outside with the blends, but remember, there is a stamp that will stamp the inside of these flowers here, as we did on the inside here of this one. This might have actually been a little trickier to color in because it's kind of got some open lined and image lines on it, but this one mostly had closed ones. So you've got your blends to go with it, you've got your ribbon, you've got the cardstock, and you've also got these great in color jewels. Now look at how pretty those are with the succulent and the Freesia and the evergreen and the papaya and the polished pink. So I could probably put a little more of those there, but since I put the embellishment of the ribbon, I thought that added a little bit of oomph to the card. And I only have one of these for right now until we can only order one on our pre-order. So I might be using it for something else, but really got a great array of new in colors coming here. So you can be looking forward to that. And like I said, with these beautiful dies here, I love these scalloped contours dies along with this. Where's the stamp set? Where did it go? Did I put it somewhere? You know, who knows what I do with things whenever I'm stamped. Oh, here it is. I just want to show it to you one more time. It's just really pretty. It's got some really pretty, you're absolutely amazing. So happy for you. Thank you for everything. So it's got a great font on there. I love a stamp set that has like cursive writing and printing in it. So this is going to be a hot item, I'm sure. So thanks for buzzing by, friends.